If marketing is storytelling, shouldn't we tell more stories? I've been obsessed with storytelling since I was a kid. I probably read more books as a kid than I did in 10 years as a teenager or early adult. First books I remember reading was, of course, Harry Potter and some horror books when I was a kid. And since I've loved storytelling in whatever goes into it and in different mediums, whatever medium that story was told in, if it was a book, a movie, TV show, or a YouTube video, I've always loved storytelling. So obviously, when I started getting into marketing and getting very interested in why people buy, the obvious next step is how can we bring these two obsessions together? How do we do marketing and storytelling? If we break marketing down, it's different aspects of it. We have advertising, which is just the process of getting people to know you. We have branding, which is kind of the aura of your business, the brand you're trying to build. But when we put everything together, we should tell more stories, because if you look at movies, the best movies, it's just great stories. Best brands built on great stories. Personal brands are, of course, built on great stories. And the best TV shows, well, they're obviously stories. And some of them have been going for years and years, telling kind of the same story, but different aspects of the story. But I feel a lot of the online advertising has lost the art of storytelling, which makes sense because a lot of it is direct response. We want that click, we want that sale directly on the ad, which means we can kind of forget the story, just make a good advertisement, get him to click, buying through the Shopify checkout page, and then we're golden. And then you're a master marketer. But you haven't told the story. So how is this sustainable? Well, it isn't actually sustainable because, as we can see over the years, click costs increase every year. There are more and more advertisers on these direct advertising platforms, which means the cost will forever increase. And of course, some of your products might increase in price, but they can't increase at the same pace. And when you have an average product that's you sell for $40 and your advertising costs keep increasing, you need some underlying story, some underlying brand, something to tell the audience for a longer time, which makes it more sustainable. Now, I'm also part of the problem because we do a lot of direct response advertising. We want to increase ROAS week over week, month after month with all of our e-com clients. As we are looking to build stronger and bigger brands and tell more stories and get more people engaged, we need to think differently. But how do we do that? Our attention spans are shortening. We are just getting blasted with content online. Everyone's making content. Not all of that content is telling a story, but it's just a war on your attention. But most brands are forgetting there is always a story to tell, even if that's your product or someone working in a corporation or the story behind your brand. We're looking at an explosion of personal brands and personal branding, which is also just storytelling. But how do we actually get more stories into our advertising? Because most of the content and most of the ads are short form. Most of our content is going to live online on social media where our attention span is very short and we're going to scroll pretty quickly. So we're going to look at the same kind of hooks and how to retain your audience. But here's where the actual art of storytelling comes in. I read a lot of books. Last year, I read over 200 books. A lot of them were absolutely horrible. I finished them because I have an issue. But most people would not finish those books because the writing was bad or the storytelling was bad. Same goes for movies and TV shows. If the story doesn't engage you, you won't continue watching. The thesis is you need to make content that actually engage your audience and keeps them watching. So how do we do this in social media? You might not have an hour and a half on Instagram on your reel or video, or even on YouTube, where we see a longer attention span or kind of a retention, but you can tell stories over a longer time horizon instead of just telling all of your story in one post. You can drag this out for months, talking about different aspects of your story, your founder story, your business story, your product story. If there are multiple people in the business, there are also multiple stories to tell, just from different personal perspectives. You can do this in a YouTube video, podcast. You can do this in story format on TikTok. You can do it in long written posts on Substack, or definitely you could share your employee stories on LinkedIn, which people seem to just love. The most important part, telling a story, should be engaging. It should retain your core audience over a longer time. And when I mean a longer time, it's not watch time on this particular video. You might have clicked off this video before I make this point, over a longer time horizon. So watch this video, you watch maybe the next video, but then maybe you skip a couple of videos and you come back to another video on this channel from me, or when we post on Facebook or we post on LinkedIn. You should be able to relate to the story and pick up where you left off. The harder part is kind of the advertising part of things when we tell stories, because when we do advertising, put money into the ads, we want them to convert, we want an ROI immediately. I just wish more businesses were thinking long term, in terms of we are going to be here for the next 20 years. And of course, we need to be profitable this year. We need to make sure we break even or have a green or black bottom line this month. But we need to tell more stories in our marketing and advertising, because that's what engages. Whatever we do, it's stories. You sit down with a friend over a beer and you talk, it's about stories. The reason why some people win the election, it's about stories. It's retaining people, telling a story over a longer time horizon. It's just attention. We need greater stories. One of the best stories ever told is, whether you believe it or not, is in the Bible. It's most sold book ever. If it's the most read book ever, I don't know, but it's the most sold book ever, and it's a great story. I think we're also shifting away from this kind of click to convert advertising, because people are getting fed up with the same type of ads. Of course, there are always going to be trends, but we are looking to more brands that we can relate to. And for us to relate to something, we need a story. We need to tell better stories. For the brand, you could also kind of make up a story. So with our company, Deus Marketing, it's obviously a story behind it, which we're gonna tell very soon. But we could also make up a story about me kind of finding our divine purpose or something, and then kind of just writing our own story. It doesn't have to necessarily be rooted in what actually happened. You have to create your own brand world. I'm gonna link a video on kind of world building below, because it's a very good point and it's a very good video. And I think more and more brands are gonna do it. Then of course it's gonna be saturated as well. But when we are looking at our ideal clients, it's gonna be more kind of luxury services and businesses. And there we need good stories. We need something to attract people. It can't be just this is expensive, because that's not a story. There needs to be a reason why it's expensive. When you are planning your next campaign and looking at your brand, how we can retain more customers over a longer time horizon, which also makes our conversions cheaper over time, think about storytelling. Think about creating or actually elaborating on your story. I look at this from a perspective of running an agency for 6 years. We have a lot of smaller clients, but their stories are usually amazing. They just haven't told them or don't know how to tell them. So please create more stories, and you'll see more sales, and you'll see higher retention, and people will love your brand even more.